morning. Okay, so we're live. Okay. We will start the show in a minute or two. I just wanted to make sure everything is up and running. And it looks like it is. I tell you, this Facebook dashboard is not the most user-friendly. And I'm a semi-techie person, but I don't know. I guess I'm just going to have to get used to it. Because I don't know if they're going to be making any changes soon. But anyway, so let's get started. First of all, good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Daycare Q&A Show. I'm your host, Adrienne Bradley of Thriving Childcare. Thank you for joining me here today. And if you are joining me here this morning, please send me some hearts and likes so I can see you and just say hello. And if you're watching the replay, just type replay in the comments so I can say hello to you too. But yeah, so first of all, I like to start off the show with a few housekeeping notes. First, if you hear some jingling in the background, it is my dogs. They're walking around behind me, and I'm hoping that they behave during the show, but we'll see. But if you hear that noise, that's them walking around. Secondly, throughout the show, I will be taking my glasses on and off because I know that with the glare coming from my screen and my glasses, you can't really see my eyes very well. But I need these bad boys to be able to see and read, so I'll take them on and off, but I do need them. Let's see. What else is going on? Okay, and lastly, we will be having a giveaway at the end of the show today, so stick around for that. But in case you do have to leave early, you can catch the show replay on our YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. So you won't miss out on anything, well, except the giveaway, but thank you. Let's see. What else? Okay. So let me tell you what's going on in the Thriving Childcare universe this week. First, today's show is actually sponsored by the Provider Planner and Organizer, our luxury planner just for childcare owners. And this is actually the last week of our annual half-year, half-off sale. So you can actually get the planner for up to 50% off till the end of the week or till the end of the month, whenever that is. It's coming up real soon. So I'll leave a link to the planner in the show notes so you can get in on that before it's over, okay? And next week, I will be hosting a webinar about how to use AI to save time running your business. There's been a lot of buzz this year about the use of AI. Some of it has been a little bit negative, but I want to be able to show you how you can use it positively for your business and helping you run your business a lot smoother. So that'll be next week. That'll be the first Thursday in July, but I will post some notices up about that between now and then. But type in the chat if you want me to send you a message, and type in the chat, let me know if you want me to send you a direct message and let you know when that training's happening so you don't miss it, okay? All right, and lastly, later today, I'm going to put up a poll in the group about childcare versus daycare and whether one term is preferred over the other. But what do you think? Type in the chat which term you use or prefer to use for your business. Do you use childcare? Do you use daycare? Do you think one is better than the other? Yeah, type in the chat and let me know. We can actually have a whole conversation about that at another time, the results of the poll. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, just in case you missed the poll a little bit later. Okay, so now let's get into some questions that have been submitted by daycare owners. And before I jump into that, again, I just want to say that that's what we do here. That's what we do here. That's what the show, I hope, will be about. Finding answers together to our challenges as childcare or daycare owners, and finding those solutions together. Because again, I love a good rant, but a rant with a resolution is a lot better, at least in my books. So with that, let's jump into some questions, okay? And type in if you have a response that you would like to share to any of these questions. Go ahead and type those in the chat too. I would love to see that. And the question, the person who posed the question will be able to see it too if they watch the show. So that would be great. Okay, so the first question is from Sarah, and she says, "Hey Adrienne, how do you handle difficult parents who constantly push boundaries and disrupt the daycare routine?" Okay, that is a common question. And I'm going to take my glasses off. That is a common question that a lot of us have, or a common issue that a lot of us have. And I think, like I was saying last week, I think it's a little unreasonable for us to think that we're going to get along with every client or parent or person on this earth, right? So with that in mind, we can maybe be a little proactive in trying to foster relationships, at least working relationships with our clients, as far as, being civil and not necessarily being triggered by a certain person. Okay, so I'll say that first. Now, if you do have clients that are testing those boundaries, not wanting to follow rules and policies, I've written before that a lot of the policies that we have in our business relates to some of the things that are required for our daycare licenses. In other words, we have to do certain things, but that doesn't mean your clients necessarily know that. And I know years ago I actually asked one of my assistants at the time if she thought some of the rules that I had, I was just pulling out of thin air or what. And she said, yeah, she would have thought that I was making all of these rules and they were just coming from me. Not that there was any other authority or any other reason for the rules that I had in place, the procedures that I had in place. And so I took that to heart, and I started to share things with my clients. Previous to that, I just felt like this was my business and this was my license and I was responsible. And so a lot of these issues I just dealt with in silence. I didn't necessarily share with them that certain things were mandated by the state and by the licensing body. I just kept all that to myself and just tried to enforce the policies on their face. But after that conversation with my assistant, I decided, when I could, not all the time, not sharing every single detail, but I would try to strategically mention the fact that we are mandated, at least here in California. I'm in California, and we are mandated to have a nap time for the children. We're also prohibited from waking them up. And that's not something that my clients necessarily knew. And so I would very proactively and positively, without what I mean by that is without being negative, having a negative tone, explain to them that this was something that I was mandated to do here in this business. Okay? So across the board, when there were issues, when it came to certain policies or whatever, I would try to find ways to inform my clients why this policy existed. Maybe it wasn't a mandated policy from the state or licensing. Maybe it had something specifically to do with my business. I can tell you one issue that I had with clients over the years was them not picking up on time. And I know a lot of people have that issue as well. But the parents may or may not realize that you could be licensed for a certain period of time during the day. In other words, let's say from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., just pulling that out. If somebody arrives at 6:05, you're actually operating outside of your license. And if licensing were to show up for some reason, and it does happen, it seems like it, that's outlandish that type of timing would happen, but you are still outside of the confines of your daycare license, and it could cause a problem. So explaining that in some way and fashion proactively, maybe you want to put that in your newsletter, maybe you want to put that in your handbook, your parent handbook. And again, you don't have to give them all the details. You don't have to list out the specific, cite the specific regulation. You don't have to do that. But you can say, we are licensed to be open between this time and this time. It's just like any other business, quite frankly. They post their hours of operation on the door. And those are the hours that they are open and that they close and that they're not open. And so getting your parents maybe to understand the background of why some of these policies and procedures exist could go a long way to maybe helping them be more compliant. I don't know. I didn't want to use that word. Be more, be more compliant, to actually follow those rules and regulations, or those rules and policies that you have for your business. So one other thing I want to say, and I'm spending a little bit of time on this because this is pretty common. Most of us deal with this in some form or fashion. But something else I want to say is that I do have, and I do suggest that providers have a contract and a handbook. And this is one of the reasons why, because if your clients can't follow something that they don't know about. So if you're upfront right at the beginning on what your policies and procedures are, then at least they are aware. You don't have to tell them everything, and they have it written there that they can refer back to. Now, you might have to remind them from time to time, like I said, maybe in your newsletter, maybe in a conversation. However, you want to consider reminding them, and I do think that that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable. People have a lot of things going on in their life, and remembering all of your policies and procedures probably isn't high up on their list. And I know for myself, I don't retain things for very long, especially if they don't pertain to me. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to find a way to remind them. But and lastly, if you do have a parent handbook and you have certain things in your contract, then from the beginning you are sort of vetting out or vetting clients that aren't in alignment with what you do at your business. So I know that was a long answer, but hopefully, Sarah, there was something in there that you can use to help your clients to follow your policies and to not push your boundaries all the time. But I know this is going to come up probably a lot in one question or another. But let me move on because I spent quite a bit of time on that question. Okay, this question is anonymous. It says, "Hey Adrienne, I've been struggling with attracting new enrollments lately. Any tips on marketing my daycare and standing out from the competition?" So, I actually do have some tips. I have some tips that I've used over the years. And again, if anyone else has any other tips that are working for them or strategies that are working for them, please put them in the comments so that Anonymous can get some tips from the community as well. But one of the things that has worked for me over the years was to reach out to businesses in my community. And what I mean by that is you may have a hospital that's in your community or near to your community. Maybe you have smaller businesses that have employees. Basically, what I'm trying to say is to reach out to the HR departments in those businesses. And I know you're busy, so you can find a way to either send an email, maybe a postcard, maybe take one of your flyers up there if you have time to do that. But reach out to these HR departments or these companies that do have more than a few employees in your community, and let them know that your business exists right there in the community. I know when I was raising my children, I wanted them to be as close proximity to me as possible, so I tended to put them in childcare that was nearest to my job. And even when they went on to school age, the schools were near to my job, so that if I just felt more comfortable with that, and a lot of parents do. If something were to happen, I felt like I could get to them sooner. So having a resource or letting people know that your business exists could be a resource for them if they're looking for childcare. And by letting the HR departments know for these companies, then moving forward when they get new employees, they can inform them. Maybe you want to request that they inform new employees that your business is right here in the community, and if they're in need of childcare, that you are available, or to reach out to you. So that is one strategy that I've used over the years. That has actually worked really well. I had one client, and they worked in a business that was in the community, in my community, and they wound up sending their children to this one client. Wound up being a client of mine, and anytime somebody else in the office would mention childcare or their need for childcare, they would tell them about my business. And I can tell you that I got 8 clients out of that one business. So it can be long lasting. It can help with getting your reputation out in the community that your business is there, and it's a solid strategy. It's a solid strategy. So with every other thing that you do to market your business, think about thinking out of the box and reaching out yourself to these individual businesses, and see if that works. See if that works for you. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Okay, this one is from Lisa. Lisa says, balancing administrative tasks and taking care of the children can be overwhelming. How do you manage your time effectively? Okay, so I mentioned in the beginning of the show that next week I'm going to have a webinar on how to use AI. And that actually is one of the ways that I use to balance out some of my time. And here's why. If I'm looking to put together, let's say, a memo to the parents or a new policy or something, believe it or not, the chat or some of these other AI platforms can really help you get very close to how you want to word it. For me, it helps me to be succinct and be very clear about what I want to say, because I can tell the chat, okay, or the AI, what I want to say and who I'm talking to, and how best to to say it so that they understand, and to help me remember to put when this policy is going to start. Excuse me 1 second. Let me just get a little bit of water. Every time I talk, I get a dry mouth. But yeah, the AI can actually help you quite a bit with tasks like that. Something that you may be starting from scratch, or maybe you have a policy like we were talking about in the first question, where parents aren't following your policies. Maybe you might want to go back and run it through the AI, tell them what your policy is now and how it's written, and could it be written clearer? Could it be better explained to a new parent or even an existing parent? That's another way that you can use AI. Okay, so that's one thing that I do to help regain some time or save some time when it comes to some of the administrative tasks. Something else I would say, because it can get overwhelming. We have so many different things that we have to do for our business. When I was working, just an aside, when I was working in corporate America, I was telling my friend yesterday that you really don't pay attention to how many people are helping you in the background, like the HR department, like I don't know, all these other, the janitorial department, or people who are in charge of that. And when it's not until you come home and you have your own business that you have all of these tasks that are on you. So believe me, I understand how overwhelming it can be. Another thing that, two other things that I did or have done over the years that I feel has helped me is to have a designated time to, let's say you want to review your files and make sure they're up to date, the immunization records that you have on file for the kids are up to date. Set aside a certain day in the month. If you want to do it weekly, if you have a large enrollment and you just want to take one file a week, you can do it that way. But actually schedule that in your calendar so that you know when you are going to handle a certain task. So it doesn't get put off and put off and put off, and then it's too late. You know, licensing is here and they're looking at your files and you never had a chance to do what you wanted to do. And it wasn't because you didn't want to, it was because you got busy or you forgot, or, you know. But if you set aside a specific time to do them, that's helped me. I would pull a file every week. I would go through it, and I actually had a checklist that I created with all of the forms that should be in the file. And sometimes it was a little overkill to do it every week if I had just, if I didn't have a huge enrollment at the time. But if you have a number of children, then every week, you know, it's going to be months before you get through all of those files. So to turn it around and start with the first one again is not unreasonable. I hope that I explained that right. But yeah, set aside a specific time to do that. The other thing, like I said a moment ago, is I did create a checklist, and I dated the checklist so that when I pulled that file, let's say licensing did show up, and this has happened, they would show up and ask for 5 files to review. I could tell which 5 files I knew for a fact were up to date. Okay, I wrote about this in my 20-minute licensing visit. Because these files I knew were up to date, those were the ones I pulled and handed to her, okay? So she was able to move through this visit pretty fast. I know that things have changed and visits don't go that fast anymore, but at the time it really helped me have this quick, fast licensing visit. And lastly, you might want to think about having an administrative day. Let's call it a CEO day, administrative day. And what I mean by that is scheduling once a quarter to have a day off, not on a holiday, a specific administrative day that you notify your clients in advance you're either going to be closed for the whole day, or you're going to be closed for half a day, and maybe that's when you attack a large portion of these administrative tasks that you need to do, going through the files, updating the files. We did this in my business, and we actually, flipped over the seasons, as far as decorations, and we purged some things, cleaned up some things, did a deep clean, and all this kind of stuff. So maybe that might be a solution that you could think about doing as well. And again, if you let the parents know ahead of time, the schools do it. They do it a lot more frequently than once a quarter. So that could be something that you might want to try as well. All right, let me move on because we are getting close on time. I'm hoping I'm going to get through all these questions today. So the next question is from Rachel. She says, hi, Adrienne. I struggle with setting boundaries and saying no to demanding parents. Any suggestions for maintaining a healthy balance and establishing clear expectations? Okay. This kind of relates back to the previous question when we were talking about parents following policies and procedures and so forth. Again, I didn't say this before, but for myself, I know it's hard to hear, but for myself, I realized that I was the main problem. And what I mean by that is I didn't enforce my policies enough. So let's just say it's on a tuition matter and somebody's behind in tuition, or maybe they're not behind, maybe they don't pay on time, which is actually behind. And I let this go on. I let this go on for too long without enforcing the policy. Now the policy said that you were supposed to pay on a certain day, and that was it. But when a parent would say, oh, I'm going to pay on Monday, or I'm going to pay on Wednesday, or something like that, and I didn't enforce the policy that they had agreed to, that is in the contract, then that's on me. Okay? Because you can set up a pattern of behavior that becomes acceptable, and people don't know that they're operating outside of what they're supposed to be doing because you've accepted it. So I realized that I was a big part of that problem. And once I realized that and I did enforce it, believe it or not, that problem went away. Because once they realized I was serious, or there was going to be a repercussion, let's say somebody said, oh, well, Miss A, I'll just pay on Wednesday. I'll say, oh, but you really don't want to incur those late fees, because they start to accrue right on the day after the payment's due. Then they would realize, oh, this is serious. This is an actual policy. And I'll just say, a lot of times this is uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable thing to do. I get that. But I have seen my clients move on, graduate out, and go to a preschool or Montessori and have no problem following their rules and policies. Okay? And that just says to me that they were very clear about the repercussions if they didn't. And so if they were able to they follow the policy. We all follow policies, right? We have credit cards. We know when the credit card is due. And if we don't hit that due date, then there's going to be a fee attached. There are repercussions for everything in life. So it may be uncomfortable at first, but I can tell you from experience, once you start enforcing your policies and not being the first one, I wrote about this too, being the first one to break your own policies by allowing it to happen, you will see this decrease. And for me, it actually went away. I had to have the courage and the responsibility to my business to stand up and say, okay, well, and in a very, it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It doesn't have to be a rude exchange. It can just be, well, I'd hate to have to hit you with those fees, or however you want to say it. They will get it. Believe me, they get it, because they get it in every other way. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last question because we're almost out of time. This is from Alex. It says, I find myself overwhelmed with paperwork and documentation. Are there any tools or systems you recommend for streamlining administrative tasks? Okay, so I sort of addressed this earlier. I would suggest showing up for the webinar. The webinar is free next week. And just seeing what's possible by using AI. I talk about in the webinar how we, like I said, there's some negative connotations lately about this whole AI revolution. But we've been using, or at least I have been using AI for many years. I have an Echo Dot on my desk. I actually have 3 of them in my house. They're way too close to each other. Sometimes each one of them hears what I'm saying from another room. So I'm a little over the top with it. But I use those things to remind me throughout the day about certain things that I need to do on a daily basis or whatever, or I ask it questions that I don't feel like Googling or looking up, taking the time to look up. So AI has been a part of a lot of our lives for a long time. And we just don't realize all the different applications that we use it for. And next week I will talk about that. So I would invite you to sign up to be reminded about that free webinar so we can talk about that. But again, finding systems that work for your business. So I, for one, do not like working over the weekend on my business. I would rather keep it from Monday through Friday, just like everybody else. So what that means, once I realized I didn't want to do these administrative tasks and things on my weekend where I want to relax and I want to recoup from the week and enjoy some self-care, then I realized I had to figure out a system that worked for my schedule during the week where I could address these things, because I know they have to be done and I don't want to get behind, and there's repercussions if I do get behind. So finding a system that works for you. And like I said, if that's once a week pulling out a file, or once a week, maybe you want to make a list of all the tasks you need to handle. Excuse me, one second. Maybe you want to make a list of all the tasks you need to do, all the administrative and bookkeeping or whatever tasks you need to get done in a month, okay, every month. Make a list, and maybe every week you want to attack a certain number of those, 3, on a Thursday. Friday, my brain is usually fried, so I can't say that I'm going to be at my best on a Friday. I'm probably going to try and avoid whatever I can. So maybe on a Thursday, maybe midweek on a Wednesday, you're going to attack those 3 tasks so that every month you know that they're getting done and you check them off of your list. But it's about finding what works for your business. What works for my business may or may not work for your business. It's a suggestion that you can try, and then you can tweak. You can say, well, that day didn't work for me, or that was too much, or whatever. But it is about finding what works for your business, okay? So try some different things. Try that administrative day and see if that helps, okay? All right. That was the last question, and we almost stayed within our time constraints. So it is giveaway time. By the way, Denitra, I saw you on here, so I just want to say hey. I got to talking and I forgot to say hello. How are you? And thanks for joining me today. Okay, so giveaway. So this week, attendees will receive a copy. Attendees will receive a copy of our new Caregivers Self-Care and Wellness Planner. I was just talking about self-care. I'm really about self-care. So you will get a copy of this ebook. Just if you're watching the replay, if you are here with me live, just DM me your email address and I will make sure you get a copy of the Caregivers Self-Care and Wellness Planner. Okay? I want to encourage you to take care of yourself and to make a plan and schedule that for your own self-care. So I'm happy about that. All right. So we've reached the end of our show. I am your host, Adrienne Bradley. Thank you for joining me for the Daycare Q&A Show. And I can't wait to continue this journey with you next week. Please join me. If you can't make the show, I will leave a link where you can leave your questions ahead of time, just like these providers did. And I'd be happy to address them next week. But until then, keep thriving. See you next week.